Welcome to Spiritual and Sassy, the podcast where we bleed deep soul wisdom with authentic confidence.
We're your host,
Tressa
and Myra, and together we'll explore the mystical side of life, challenge societal norms and programming, and embrace our inner power.
Whether you're on a spiritual journey or just love a little sass, this space is for you.
Let's dive in and light up the world with a little more love. Hey,
why is it that when we start our podcast and we hit record, we get the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 countdown? Why does that make me giggle?
I don't know. I think
maybe I'm just excited. I just get excited.
I think so. I don't know. Some people laugh when they're uncomfortable. And yeah, I think it's just a natural thing. We're about to, there's no great way, folks, to slide. I don't even know if slide's a good word there, but slide into my DM.
Slide into our podcast.
So holler at us. But it's really weird to start a podcast, and to start a conversation on a podcast. I don't know how else to say that. Tressa and I can talk all day long, but when you hit record, it's just like when and we record with video, so when the camera gets on you and you hit the button, you're like, how do I have words? So I don't know. Yeah.
It's so true. It's so funny because as soon as you put a camera on somebody, it can really change how they interact, right? Because they put that pressure on themselves.
Yeah.
So maybe that's it. But I feel excited about it. Yeah. I think the laughter is more excitement for me when we start this.
I know. Yeah. It's
I enjoy it so much. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just funny. I think we're funny.
Yeah.
So
I think we're hilarious. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm staring into Tressa's eyes as it counts down. And it's like, haha.
No, I have a friend, speaking of laughter, he used to tell me, he's like, yeah, I laugh at funerals because I when I feel super uncomfortable, or church or something, I just laugh. Yeah, I get it. It's just another way for us to release energy, right?
Yeah, and it is what it is. So maybe that's it. It's me taking if you think about it in breathing, instead of taking a deep breath and exhaling, I'm exhaling through giggles. So
there you go. Yeah, I like it.
Well, if you have made it now to this episode, today we want to talk about feminine energy.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting one. I like this topic.
Yeah.
We're kind of, hopefully, we can make sure, I guess we're in control. It'd be interesting to have this out maybe around Valentine's Day as we kind of think about, I'm not big into Valentine's Day. It's just another way for people to make money off of quotation love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's about relationships, right? And expressing and appreciating the love that you have with your partner. But yeah, I think it's interesting because when I think about feminine energy and masculine energy, regardless of what gender you're born with genetically, we hold both in the body, right? From an energy practitioner perspective, the right side of your body is more representative of masculine energy and ancestral energy or family energy. And the left side is more representative of feminine energy and more of your individual space and your individual energy. So when I do sessions with clients, it's interesting because almost 100% of the time, energetically, the body's always heavier on the right side because we have a lot more with our family and our ancestral lines than we do on our individual side. But anyway, just a little bit of information there as you kind of tune into your body and pay attention to what's happening, whether it be on your right or left side. There could be a little bit of information for you there. But as we kind of start this topic, I myself have struggled to embrace my feminine side. I stay in masculine a lot. I've understood that I've done that due to trauma, right? Trauma when I was a child. I was sexually abused, and my dad committed suicide. Big traumas that happened. And as I went through those, I went into masculine energy to survive, right? We do what we need to do to survive. At the time, this isn't conscious, of course, this is all happening at the subconscious level, but that masculine energy of kind of you're only going to get so close, or, things have to happen in a more systematic way, gave me a sense of control, which helped me to feel like I had a sense of control because things happened to me that weren't out of my control. So I've had to really try to work on embracing the feminine side of who I am. And to me, that's more, it's hard to describe it, but I think it's more like that flow energy, that dancing energy, that ease energy, that, you're not trying to control things. You're letting things happen and unfold as they want to unfold or as they need to unfold. That's kind of how I try to describe feminine energy.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Trissa.
Yeah.
You know, I that's part of that, being aware of why you're in this space, why you're in this energy, and how does that experience shape your thoughts and your energy that you're moving through. I feel like too, when I think of feminine energy and around, I know I stay in a masculine energy a lot. And I know that because of, energy sessions with Tressa and talking with Tressa too, especially around my previous position, my job, my title. I believe a lot of it had to do with the work culture of that particular company. And I also think too, though, outside of all of that, just as a woman and being in the positions that I pursue and in the path that I want to advance in my career. And I like being in manager positions. I like being in higher level positions. That's just what I enjoy. In order to survive or to actually move forward in those positions, I move into more of a masculine energy, especially in the workplace. And I struggle to balance that out in my personal, like, who is Myra and what is her feminine side and the soft side, because soft sometimes is equal to weak. Back to what Tressa was saying, like, she was in a masculine energy to protect herself. And so when you're in a feminine energy, you can be softer. You are in a different state. And, these are some words that I had written down, around, like, what does it mean to, move out of, and it goes exactly with what Tressa was saying. When you are out of that masculine energy and you're in a balanced state and you're leaning into that softer feminine energy, you're not in that hustle. In my job, I'm in a hustle all the time, and I am thankful for this place I am right now because I've been able to really lean into the softer side of myself because I'm not in that hustle. I don't have meetings to run to. I don't have places to be. I'm not, and hustle's not even just work related. Hustle is, if you have children, going from soccer practice to music practice to dance to this to that to, if you're going to church or school or work or whatever. And then in your personal side, I got to go to the gym. I got to work out. I got to get all this in. That's that hustle mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And not being in a state of fear, is leaning more into your softer side, and also, being relaxed in flow. And just like what Tressa was saying too, you're in a state of flow. You're allowing that flow to come to you and, letting go of control. And this is like letting go of being in control has been the number one thing that I feel like I've worked on outside of several other things, but it's at least in my top 5 of things that I've had to work on. And right now, before we started recording, I told Tressa I really want to talk about feminine energy because, like, I'm adding florals to my home. And, that's, feminine energy doesn't always equal flowers. But for me, that is a softer side of me, wanting fresh flowers and wanting to touch with nature and to be in that side of flow. And, I mentioned in a previous episode, I'm thinking about jewelry and, like, how does that make me feel in my, like, how am I projecting myself and presenting myself as feminine energy, but then what's happening on the inside. And a lot of that for me is going with the flow, releasing that control, slowing down, reading books, being one-on-one with people, taking a bath. Self-care also is part of that, and I saw something where it's like, slowing down doesn't mean lazy. Slowing down means exactly what we're talking about. It's not that I'm lazy. I'm not in fight or flight mode. I'm out of fear. I'm calm. I'm slow in my speech, because I'm kind of going off here, but this might be a little
Yeah.
far out,
No.
but like even your speech, when I'm in masculine energy, and sometimes even when I'm recording the podcast, I can feel myself go into presenter mode, where I can
Mhm. Yeah.
feel it shifting. And I'm a talker, I talk a lot, and I'm in presentation, I present, and you can feel that energy. But then when I'm talking about being feminine, I can feel myself soften. I can feel myself, the breath, the letting
Yeah.
go. Like I can be calm. I'm safe. I'm loved. I am protected. I am free. I am in flow with the universe. Those are some affirmations that I use to help really get into that feminine energy.
Yeah, I love that. We talked about that a little bit in our previous podcast where like you feel energy, right? You
Hmm.
have to experience it. So that's like it's cool that you're recognizing like when you kind of go into that more masculine energy, it feels maybe a little tighter, right?
Hmm.
And then when you can relax and kind of go into that feminine energy, you're in a better flow. And even the physical aspect of how you feel in your throat chakra is what you're talking
Yep.
about, right? And I love that. And I loved one of the things you brought up that I think I really want to touch on is you talked about like bringing in flowers and like how that makes you feel a certain way, right? And nature, right? Nature is one of the best examples we can understand. I think nature, if I had to pick an energy to put to nature, in my opinion, it would be feminine energy
Hmm.
because it is flow. It's perfect flow, right?
Yep.
There's no controlling it, right? Like the tree doesn't say, Mr. Tree next to me, shit, he grew 2 inches last year. I've got to
I
up my
gotta,
game here, right? Or like I'm gonna hold on to my leaves because I
yeah.
don't want to be naked. Like they don't there's no thought process. It is in perfect harmony with what
I
it
love
needs
that.
to do, right? Like I
Don't
read
take my
this,
leaves.
yeah, don't take my leaves. Shit, I'm going to be, like it just allows the flow of what has to happen to occur,
Hmm.
and that's the beauty of nature. It's teaching us when you're in the flow, everything is happening in the divine timing of what it needs to do, right? Like
Hmm.
a caterpillar doesn't sit there and go, I need to turn into a butterfly. When am I going to be a butterfly?
Oh yeah.
Like there's no pressure. It's just, it's in its current state as a caterpillar in its present moment. And then when it's time, it changes, right? There's no
Yeah.
pressure on that.
Or
So
comparison.
comparison,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, there's no comparison in nature, like and nature, yeah, I think it's such a beautiful teacher, right? And
Hmm.
some people are like, I've heard this said, nature can be brutal, but because of, a
Yeah.
lion is going to eat a gazelle or what, but I don't view it as brutal. I view it as it's nature is allowing resources the way they naturally should be, right?
Hmm.
Like we're there to serve each other, right? Water's here to quench our thirst, right? Wind's here to clean out the air. Like it doesn't necessarily have to be viewed as a negative thing, that sometimes we can view it in that aspect when we look at nature and
Yeah.
brutality or what people think is brutality.
Yeah, I think, my mind goes to natural disasters, and I don't really want to go there. But, in ways, for an example, fire, an element, yes, burning when a forest or an area burns, it's sad. But the growth that comes after, because it needed to
Yeah.
burn, it needed that cleansing to get rid of the brush, to release, to bring back the natural flow. It needed it, and then it grows back beautiful and better than it's ever been. And it's greener than it could ever be. The life is given back to it because it has to go back to that state to then return to or to come back even better. Like the caterpillar, it has to go in that
Yeah.
state to be a butterfly. When you think about nature and the elements and brutality, it does feel brutal. It does look brutal. When you put people and lives and things and objects, it becomes very brutal. But really, what's happening in the flow state of nature is what's meant to be happening.
Yeah. I think as humans, we just are really uncomfortable with the fact that everything is impermanent. We're impermanent. Like, and
Yeah.
we don't like that. So we can tend to view that in a negative way, right? Instead of like, hey, okay, that's really cool to me. Like the tiger eats the impala or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like that was a gift to the tiger. Like maybe that was what happened. It had to happen, right? Whatever is happening is in divine flow in nature,
Yeah.
in my opinion. As humans, we try to control that so much because we're get attached to, we want that to last forever, or that person to be here forever, or this thing to be here forever,
Yeah.
right? That
Oh, yeah.
control energy. So yeah, it's tough sometimes. Also, I think some of the things you were talking about that triggered a couple of things I wanted to comment on when you talked about like being in more of a masculine energy in your job, right? Or in a
Mhm.
role, or in a, I think part of that is because, as women in our evolution, even 50 years ago, which is not that long,
Yeah.
women were not in the workplace like they are
No.
today. They just weren't. It didn't happen. And so as women have started to embrace this more, having more careers, right? They've come into the masculine energy because it's the way that it was presented to them. Right? They've
Yep.
tried to adapt into the corporate world or whatever because that was the energy that was there. And instead of bringing their feminine energy into that, which is powerful, and I've struggled myself, I still to this day, it's a challenge. They've just kind of adapted into what was presented to them. I think that's part of it as well.
Yeah, that is really powerful. When I think about like instead of it, like how are women shaping the workforce and molding the workforce and making it a new space, was here's this space you enter and then you
Mm-hmm.
adapt. And I love that. Being in roles where we are creatives, I feel like I may have impacted my creativity. I know I may have. I impacted my creativity because I was so busy being in a masculine energy for the business side of things when I needed to tap into that feminine side to be a creative. And I keep saying, this is just where I'm at, but this podcast is natural. It's because I want to do it and there's no business around it. I'm doing
Yeah.
it with my friend we love to talk and we have ideas and we want to share these ideas and we hope that the message lands with the right people and it can be what it needs to be. I have no expectations of this podcast. I'm letting it flow. And because of that, I'm able to be in my feminine energy and I'm able to create, and I'm creating better than I've ever created before. And, it's a lesson that I've learned and I'm excited for going back into the corporate world because I'm excited to bring this new feeling of this feminine energy that I've leaned into the workspace. Like I am so excited because I'm ready to bring this energy to this role instead of conforming my energy to the role or my energy to that space. And I've learned a really valuable lesson through this journey is I will no longer change my energy for somebody else, someone else, something else. If they want me there and this is the space I'm supposed to be in, then my energy will flow like it needs to within that space. I don't need to conform to fit that space.
Yeah, I love that so much. So easy for us to try to conform and fit into a
Mm-hmm.
structure. But when you do that, like when you lack that authenticity, you're going to limit yourself, right? You will, right? It's
Yep.
going to be a natural limit. And so I love that you're going into this new space and you're like, I'm going to be authentically who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And if it aligns, it aligns. And I think it will align or it wouldn't be happening, right?
Yeah.
And I agree. That's one of the things from my position as a marketing director I struggle with too. And I've really tried to work on that. And the more that I can be in my authentic energy and the more I
Mm-hmm.
can allow the flow, the better off things are, right?
Yeah.
They're so much better. But it's like trusting that has been
Exactly.
a challenge for me, right? And reminding myself, you know, to allow that in that space. It's been a great learning experience for me,
Mm-hmm.
though. And it's a place where I recognize that I have to have even more heightened awareness because it is a place where I do struggle to allow it.
Yeah. I think too, it's part of, I don't know. I think for me, I grew up around a lot of males. I have brothers. I, uh, there's just a lot of masculine energy around me and my friend group in places I mesh very well with masculine energies. And it's so easy to lean into that space, but my feminine energy makes me who I am too. And so it's being in that authentic state. I love my feminine energy. And it's taken me, these last couple months to really say that, like I love it. I love being a woman. I love being Myra and self-love and my feminine energies, that side of me. Um it's helped. That's how I've overcome being so in control. Because I'm
Mm-hmm.
not in control. I'm
Yeah.
allowing the flow.
Yeah.
And it's being proud of that side of me. Like I enjoy it. It's not being dainty and frail, but
Oh,
it's those parts of me that I am very proud of that I think has also helped fuel the desire to lean into those spaces. And, I, um, yeah, it's just, I've also noticed too, because I have a daughter and a son, and so for those listening, and um, I it's doesn't do anyone any favors if I'm constantly in a masculine energy when I'm trying to tell my daughter that she needs to do A, B, and C and D, or I'm hoping she does A, B, and C and D because she can feel my energy. So if I'm too busy trying to stay in the state, she can feel those states too. And I'm not helping any of the generational impact like self-love or leaning into being a feminine or leaning into your feminine energy. She can feel all those things. It's not the words that I say or how I act or how I'm portraying it. It's what she can feel. And so I've really being more aware of that too has helped me. And then also my feminine energy helps my son. It helps him too because it helps with his flow state, and as he grows and matures and as he balances his masculine and feminine energy, how am I helping that growth and that flow for him too?
yeah, I love that. And I think as like that feminine energy is that energy of acceptance and love and that unconditional love that
Mhm.
your children need, right? And so whether that's coming from you as their mom or Blake as their dad, as you're embracing in connection, right?
Yeah,
It comes from that feminine space when it's true,
exactly.
right? Like so often, well, generationally, I think parenting has been interesting. I'm not a parent, but I was parented, right? And I think generationally it was more through the masculine lens, right? Of like, well, shit, when I was a kid, I mean, it was like you did this or else. Like there was no like, hey, how do you feel about this as an individual, right? Like,
Yeah.
and that, you know, like I remember I hated lima beans. Oh God, I just hated them. I wasn't that
Yeah.
picky of an eater, but my mom would, I lived with her and my stepdad at the time, and she would make those stupid lima beans and she would like make me sit at the table until I ate them. Well, I sat there one night like, well, I guess I'll be here all night because this ain't
Mhm.
like, but that's masculine, right? Like, you have to like this. It has to, and that's, they were doing the best they could at the time. But what I'm saying is like, I'm glad you're recognizing that, right? Because as a parent, yes, you're teaching them, but they have to have this underlying safe space to know that they truly have this space of unconditional love. And that can only happen through the feminine side. And I think on a larger scale, that COVID, I don't believe anything happens coincidentally, right?
Yeah.
Everything is divinely planned. And as you think about what that gifted us, right? It
Hmm.
gifted us to have to go into feminine energy. It took away things. You were home, you had more time. You had to slow
Hmm.
down. People had to go inside. They had to have some self-reflection. And that is the start of what I believe feminine energy is going to help with the healing of societal structures and what's the next level that we have to go into. It won't be
Yeah.
rebuilt through masculine energy. It won't work. That patriarchal system is falling. And so, really learning to embrace that, especially as women, I've had to work on that. I still work on it all the time. Being like, I love you talking about like loving being a woman. You know, when I was in my younger years, I wish I could say I loved it, but I cursed it half the time,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
But
And you talking about like both sides of the parenting. I'm not trying to go back to parenting, but it
no,
made me
go back
think
to it.
of
Yeah.
But no, it made me think of I had a conversation with someone and their son was not in trouble at all. He wasn't in trouble. Another kid was in trouble for what they did, and the principal had to question their son. And the principal, recapped the conversation to the parent, and they're like, just want you to know that your son did come in, he was scared and he had been crying. And the parent that relayed the information to me said, well, why is my son crying? Like, he should be tough. Like, he needs to, there was nothing to be even afraid of. Like, hold your head high, go to the office, and be okay. You weren't in trouble. And this just made me think of that. So, being in the feminine energy is also feeling emotions. And for this boy, he needed to feel those emotions. And then I encouraged that parent. I said, hey, you know what? When you talk to them, you might want to lay off saying, I mean, I said it more diplomatically,
Yeah.
but like,
Yeah.
let's
I get
not
it.
do that,
Yeah.
and they were like, I hear you. And they didn't, they chose not to go that path. And I said,
Good.
because I'm going to tell you why, because also there was another situation that unfolded a couple of days later, and it's going to be a situation that would make male, female, dog, anyone cry. And if in that moment of something that they went through, that they have someone they look up to saying, don't cry, you don't need to show emotion, when it's time for them to really show emotion and they need, because crying is just a release of the body. It's a release of that emotion. And so when this child is going to find out this news when they need to really release and they don't need to hold it in, they're going to, if the parent had went the other way, they would be thinking, oh my gosh, I can't cry, I got to bottle this up, and if our Wyoming listeners, I'm so sorry, but I don't like the phrase cowboy up. I'm sorry. And I don't like it because it's like, what is that? I mean, okay, I know it means many things, but it also is like that buck up, don't cry, don't show emotion, you got it, you got. And I know it also means like pick yourself up and just keep going, like you can do it. And it is a word of encouragement. But being in Wyoming and then being a part of the mental health space of what's happening in Wyoming, the number one thing I heard though was a lot of people talking about how the phrase cowboy up impacted people to not want to feel emotions or go seek out therapy or seek out help when they needed it. And they needed extra help, whether it be just talking to someone and showing signs of weakness, or I don't like the word weakness, I shouldn't have, but you know what I mean? Moments that they felt weak in, where they
Yeah.
needed to dip into a feminine energy to feel that, to have that emotion. And they felt like they had to stay in this other state of mind. And, so all that to say is that, having that balance, between both sides is that balance of also feeling. You know, so anyways, yeah,
No,
there's that.
I love it. I love it so much because you touched on so many things that are so important to highlight. Like, our emotions are absolutely natural. There is nothing wrong with emotion. Energy in motion, right?
Yep.
Emotion. And it's so unfortunate that so many of us have been parented that way, or societal structures like what you're talking about, like cowboy up, or like what your friend was like, why did they have to cry? Like, why would that be scary to them? Well, ask them. Like, I
Yeah.
don't make it shameful though, because that's what happens is we shame somebody, right?
Yep.
And then what they start to do is, oh my God, for my mom, my dad, my whoever to love me,
Mm-hmm.
I've got to have this exterior where I can't just say, I want to cry, or I feel this emotion, right? And
Yeah.
then that's exactly what starts to happen. You start suppressing, you start holding, and this is what I work with clients on, right? I do
Mm-hmm.
energy work because the body does not lie.
Yep.
The body will store that shit. It will store
Yep.
it forever, right? And pretty soon, you're my age at 38, 39, having like stored all the trauma and all the bullshit that I've gone through. And I'm like full blown having, panic attacks and wondering why. Well, it has to release at some point. So
Exactly.
I love what you're talking about because we need to let each other be safe in their emotion. And as soon as you feel the emotion and you truly let it go through the body, it's done.
Mm-hmm.
It's not stored anymore, right?
Oh, yep.
And that's the beauty of it. So I hear what you're saying about like certain terms. And as we talk about like cowboy up, don't suppress it, right? Let yourself feel it. Let yourself go through it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a trick there though. Like people can get stuck, but when they get stuck, it's because they feel in a victim energy, right?
Yep.
They've let their power go, right? They're
Yeah.
looking at an external source to help them. So it's an interesting dynamic, but yeah, if emotion is healthy, people, let yourself feel your feelings, right? And you
Yeah.
as a mom and you sharing with your friend maybe about how to approach their child, I think is good because you're able to set those foundations for them that it's okay.
Yeah, because I mean, my daughter is very sensitive, and I'm well aware of that. And I have a lot of people in my life who say, "Oh, don't let her cry. She doesn't need to be crying about that," or tell her to calm down, or, um, some people even would maybe try to match her energy or elevate their energy instead of
Mm-hmm.
meeting her where she's at energetically. And I'm not been the best at it. I'm not saying that I've been, queen of the parents with this emotional energy that I have in my home, but I'm aware of it, and my self-awareness around it has helped me because I she's energy that she has. If I suppress her or don't allow her to feel and to get it out and to just work through those things, her already anxious tendencies will just amplify. And
Mm-hmm.
this is the only way I can help her work through those things now, or it'll just be worse. And I know that because I have people in my life that are adults who have felt the same way as her as a child, or and they had people in their lives scream and yell and say, "Don't cry, don't you should be tough." And now they are still working through those things. So it's really the place that I come from at it. I think about, okay, these are the adults and these are their traumas that they're working through.
Mm-hmm.
How can I help alleviate some of it? I mean,
Yeah.
she's going to have things that she'll probably be like, yeah, my mom did this, but how can I make it better? How can I do my best to alleviate any of those, making it worse, I guess, like,
Yeah. Yeah. I
because
get
I'm going to
exactly what
screw
you're saying.
up,
Of
and
course.
part of it too, though, is also something I wanted to call out is also being aware and recognizing and then apologizing, because if I have elevated or I have, probably done something that I shouldn't have done, a lot of people won't say sorry to their children. And I think that that's really valuable when you're recognizing, especially when it's because it's also my release of an emotion. Like I'm not storing, like, dang, I shouldn't have probably acted that way, or maybe I shouldn't have said that, or maybe was that the best that I could have been in the moment. And it's not even just your children, but even your spouse or whomever you're coming in contact with. Saying sorry can be a challenge. But I've really made a point that if I feel that it wasn't the best move on my end, that I've, sat down and said, hey, I apologize for how I reacted. I could have done better. I recognize it. I want to do better to my child. And she's able to say, hey, you know what? I shouldn't have probably said that either, or maybe acted that way, or, and so there's no resentment that's already forming between us, because resentment goes both ways. We're able to call it out as it is and really feel those emotions together because ultimately we're all going to make mistakes no matter which side of the, conversation or situation you're in.
Yeah, I agree. I like to think about it not as a mistake, but as a little bit of contrast, right? Because
Yeah.
this is humaning. We're
Yep.
humaning, right? And we're humaning
Yeah.
together. There's I think what you put out, you get back, and you're also mirrored certain things that usually when I'm annoyed by something, I kind of try to go, okay, what am I doing that's a reflection? It's showing me my reflection, right? I'm doing something similar probably that
Yeah.
maybe I'm not showing up as my best self. But yeah, if I do that in a situation, I try to take it as a lesson. Like I don't berate myself, right? It's not, I usually am like, thank you for showing me that contrast. And then I'll go to the individual. I'll be like, hey, the other day, like when I said this, like that wasn't my best self, but I learn from it. And hopefully next time I'm not in such an emotional state that I'm going to be reactive. I want to really be responsive. So that's kind
Yeah.
of what you're teaching her that right now. And there's
Hmm.
nothing wrong with that. I think it's just most people, well, not most, some people have a hard time admitting those things, right? Or they just want to brush it under the rug or, avoid it, going to that
Yeah.
avoidant energy. So, as we've kind of talked through this episode, I think one of the upcoming episodes I'd really like to get into what's called the scale of consciousness, right? Which really
Hmm.
helps us understand through an emotional lens where we're at with our vibration, because everything's energy. So I
Yep.
think that'd be a cool one to jump into in one of our upcoming episodes. I had to write that down so I didn't forget.
Yeah, no, I love that because I I think that'd be a great episode. And I think about the scale of consciousness a lot. And as I've been more aware of it, it's made me aware of where I'm at and
Hmm.
what energy I'm putting out, where I'm at vibrationally. What am I putting out there in my sphere? And what vibrations, what am I taking in? What energy am I taking in?
Yeah. And just a couple of tips and tricks before we end this one, specifically back to feminine energy that I use because I can hold so much masculine energy is I try to do a lot of dancing when I'm home, like cruise around dancing when I make my bed. I bought myself a tambourine. I should have got it
Oh,
out,
I like
played it
that.
for you guys. Yeah, so I have it, and at night sometimes I'll just play it. I mean, I don't know how to play it, but
I
I
love
play it, right? And I'll dance around. I
That's
mean, because
awesome.
that's flow, right? That's the flow. And so if you tend to be kind of like Myra and I and you want to tune into that, there's just a couple of little tips and tricks that can help you become more in that flow. And one of the first things I did years ago when I was working with a coach on some of my traumas and recognized how I do hold so much masculine versus feminine, and this may seem really stupid, but I used to have to clean my house in a certain order, even, right? I did everything in a very structured order. So, one of the first things I did is like, okay, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to tune into where does the flow want to take me? Oh, maybe it'll take me to my kitchen. Maybe it'll take me to my bedroom. Maybe I'll vacuum first. A
Yeah.
vacuum had to be the caboose for me.
Yeah.
And that sounds silly and simple, but even starting with something like that, where like you're trying to structure everything and instead just go, okay, I'm just going to let it flow to how it needs to be.
I love that. And I think too, also being in a state of play. That's
Yes.
what I call it.
Love it.
And so if I'm playing with my children, I'm being playful. I'm very unserious in my personal life. You know, I make up songs with my kids and I rearrange the lyrics. And that is something that I owe so much gratitude to my parents for because they also were in a state of play. And I I felt the most love in those moments, being playful with them and making up songs and being silly. And it showed me that I can be me and have fun, and I don't have to be so rigid or I don't have to be this as an adult. When being in a state of play can be very challenging as an adult. And, I love it. I dance around. We were in the doctor's office for an hour and a half with my son, and nobody came and talked to us. And there was nothing wrong. They're like, oh, there's nothing
Yeah.
wrong. But I danced the whole hour and a half because was like, I don't want to walk out and be reactive in the moment. And so I just did a dance and it made my son happy, because he's a baby. And, being in that state of play for me, whether it's, I'd sing and dance around by myself. I don't need to be with my children to be in a state of play. And I'm grateful for my parents for teaching me that it's a comfortable space to be in and it's a beautiful space to be in because when you're in a state of play, you are yourself, you're back in that childlike feeling, you're feeling everything around you, and you also are free and in true flow. I'm just letting things happen, and it's like the ultimate space of creativity for me.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up, right? Because I struggle with that. I'm not in a state of play very often. And that's why I have to think about dancing, or I'm getting better, right? But the more I've
Yeah.
done it, it's like I had to teach myself it's okay to be playful because my life
Yeah.
it was serious. And
Hmm.
I was brought up by kind of people who were more serious, right?
Yeah.
And so I love that because that play, fun, that's my word for the year is fun and joy because I know I need to
Mhm.
do more of it. I know I
Yeah.
need that space. And that's absolute flow. It's perfect flow, being that childlike and not being so adulting. Adulting is
It's not fun.
boo-hoo.
Yeah, I literally on my personal TikTok made a video of me playing with Legos. And everybody's like, "What's wrong with you?" And I posted it on even like my personal account. I'm like, "This is who I really am." Like I want to go build a whole Lego world and just make ridiculous videos of Lego characters. Like that is me at my core. And I posted it. I didn't care. I'm like,
Yeah, I love it.
but that is, I love it. I think that it's having fun is a way to really balance out your energies between masculine and feminine and really add that if you're struggling to add feminine energy back or to find that flow, that's a really great way to let it in naturally.
Yeah, I agree. It's a great reminder. We should all be a little more playful, right?
Hmm.
Sometimes we take things so damn seriously
I
and
know. Hmm.
it's just it weighs you down. So,
Yep.
yeah, love that reminder. So, well, everybody out there, till next time, you better be dancing around.
Yeah. Go find Zumba if they even
Go
have
whatever,
Zumba
yeah.
anymore. Yeah.
And as you dance, keep your vibrations high.
And stay sassy.